All right, so I want to talk about something, and I've been waiting to talk about it because I'm writing a book about it, and I was worried to talk about it without doing it like perfectly, and it will never be perfect, so I should just talk about it. I don't know how much I've talked about it already. I know I talk about it in readings a lot when I do readings, because it's something that's really near and dear to my heart. It's about Chiron. I'm always fucking talking about Chiron. But I think Chiron in the context of like global colonization and oppression and genocide and like pick a continent, right? Um, I think is it's important to talk about Chiron for me because I just see the way that trauma infiltrates everything and how, I mean, like add to the list, like I'm just one of many people who do, obviously, but um I think being able to see and understand people's like wounding and projection, um, in part so that you can give resources to people to tend to themselves if that's appropriate, but also in part to like understand who you're dealing with. And I feel like the people that I've learned from best are those who do this really well. Um, so let me just get into it. Here's my phone. Okay, I'm going to read you an excerpt from what I'm writing. Let me explain the concept. No, let me just read it. Okay, so. All right, let's do this. All right, I propose a bitty theory that's a combination of other people's ideas filtered through my chironic astrological lens. To go on this ride with me, you'll have to be on the same page with me about inequity. There's a norm. Many of us got no say in how this norm was created. It was a small, wealthy group of white people. We do get a say in how it's upheld. The norm is a toxic bubble. In this bubble lives white supremacy, racism, xenophobia, transphobia, homophobia, ableism, fat phobia, rationality over everything, denying your body's experience of something and lived experience, individualism and sexism. The isms live and thrive in this bubble. Chiron shows us the distance we are from the norm. The goal is to dismantle the bubble because the bubble is wrong. The goal is not to contort, repress, and reject parts of yourself to be admitted to the toxic bubble club. The self-hatred of those who do this and continue to do this is apparent. Their projections are exhausting and they cause harm to everyone in their efforts to abandon the parts of themselves that they were told were unlovable and unacceptable. No. What we do with the bubble is to look around to the others we find, to look around to the others we find outside of this bubble. We band together and we love ourselves and each other so wholly and so radically that the bubble and those who uphold it are fucked. That's the goal. The people I see living out their chirons for the good of the masses and themselves are those who are most marginalized by the bubble. I think of Black drag queens. Their joy and performance is a gift of love and beauty. I think of trans educators, creators, and artists of all kind striving for liberation. I think of disabled leaders, artists, and educators doing the life-saving work of loving themselves and giving other disabled folks a voice and warmth to step into, to know that you're enough and you don't have to earn or prove anything to be enough. The toxic norm needs you to hate yourself. Self-hatred is a lucrative business. It's a socio-political one too, something meant to distract and divide us. While we waste away in isolation, self-hatred, and shame, the bubble thrives. When we come together, when we love each other and ourselves, the toxic bubble loses another supporter and upholder. It gets weaker and we get stronger. When we cut off parts of ourselves to fit in, it kills us. We put on a mask and set ourselves up to never be known or loved for who we are. We let the not enough voices win, and worst of all, we agree with those voices as we self-abandon. The parts of ourselves we are trying to abandon make us human, diverse, and beautiful. They allow us to bond over the human condition. They give us empathy, understanding, and the magic of being known. What we witness, we change. When we talk about the insecurities, when we love on the parts of ourselves that feel unlovable, we free ourselves. We deprogram from the bubble and we become more useful friends and community members to those who are born further away from the toxic norm, who can see the systems of harm from a wider view. We can't participate in collective liberation while we're standing in our own way, feeding the toxic bubble that hates us. So, where do you need to love and free yourself from shame and othering? Find your Chiron. It looks like a key with a circle, the letter K sticking out of its head. Find where it is and which planets are wrapped up in your Chiron story. It'll help you get out of your own way and stop stabbing the wound that society marked you with. Chiron in our chart starts out as a story, usually a story of how we were harmed, and the key players and the feeders of this story are the other planets and asteroids who make aspects to your Chiron. And I will go through examples in the book that I'm writing. I just think that witnessing each other's humanity makes the load of the burden of existence quite a bit lighter. And you don't have to do this alone. You shouldn't do this alone, but you also can't burden those who are further marginalized with your healing. So I present as a white femme, and it is irresponsible of me to bring the harm that I have faced as a person in the world, as a queer person in the world, as a non-binary person in the world, as a person who comes from a dysfunctional family, like person who has mental illness, like whatever thing that I experience that is my qualifier for being outside of the toxic bubble club, whatever mine is, it is irresponsible and harmful for me to bring those things to someone further marginalized than me. Does that make sense? Because it's short-sighted, and me working on those things about myself is important for me to do in spaces where it doesn't further harm. And in the comments section of a disabled creator, in the comments section of a Black educator, liberator, artist, to name a few examples, is not the fucking place to work your shit out. And that should be pretty obvious. I feel like that's not like radical or like earth-shattering information. And this is not a like go to therapy kind of thing, because therapy is widely inaccessible. But there are support groups out there to work on your shit. And there are support groups out there to heal and to be seen and loved for who you are and celebrated for who you are, so that you can be a more whole person, because that's what we all want for ourselves. Self-actualization seems pretty cool. There's a lot of barriers to that, but the quicker, maybe it's not about speed, but the better and more deeply you can understand yourself, your patterning, your wounds, your nervous system, what gets you activated, how to care for yourself once you're activated, the better actual ally and collaborator that you can be. And like, again, I'm not saying anything new. I'm not saying anything that's like all that impressive or unique. This is just going through an astro lens and a lens of my own experience. And because I look like what I look like and I have access to who I have access to, I should say it and I will say it and I'll keep saying it. And you trust me as an astrologer, potentially, if you're watching this. If you don't, that's fine. I'm not your person. I'm okay with that. It's not a big deal. But yeah, I wanted to say this today. I might be sharing more of it later. But I think in light of the genocide of Palestinian people in their own homeland by the Israeli government is fucked. It's only one place in the world where this is happening. Like I said earlier, pick a continent, there's genocide happening. There's systemic oppression happening. There are, because my mom's a nurse, I'm like, there are health outcomes that are worse for people who are experiencing like oppression and dehumanization. And of course there are. Like, health outcomes are different based on your experience. And like, that's all the data we need, in my opinion, like people's lived experience and them not being as healthy as other people because of the stress of racism, because of the chronic stress of being dehumanized by like oppressive governments and systems and their neighbors. Like, it's It's a lot to hold, but we can hold our self-actualization and the desire for collective liberation at the same time because they're interwoven. But there's a certain amount of work that you have to do if you're closer to the toxic bubble of the norm so that you can even be useful to those who are further marginalized than you are. There's a lot of work to be done because the second that you're triggered, you're going to become a child. And the second that you're triggered, it's going to be very difficult for you to listen and take in and even meet people at the level of accountability that they're asking from you. Okay, that's what I have for you today. If you want to talk about Chiron, look it up, find where yours is. And when I open myself up to readings again, you can talk to me about them. Since they're not open right now, I have several astrologer friends who can do it justice, who I really trust. Pooja, who I do a mutual reception podcast with, is one of them. She's incredible. I trust her with my life. My friend Maureen at Moonstone and Stardust gives incredible readings, very asteroid perspective. She includes those. My friend Hummer, I think she does Madame Muse astrology, is pretty incredible. My friend Christina, who's Elemental Empowerment, I think is their handle. So yeah, there are folks out there and many more who I didn't name. Those are just the ones I know personally, who can be of assistance. And yeah, I'm going to keep talking about this because Chiron's on my ascendant and I constantly think about him all day, every day. All right, lots of love. Goodbye.